As far as the future of this program is concerned, man, we are having to deal with some difficult, not very fun conversations. And something that struck me in particular, thinking about the aftermath of the Texas game and just how much the team continues to struggle offensively when even a team like Texas, who is 8th in the Big 12 in offensive efficiency going into the game, is able to have somebody pop for 26 and have a pretty good game offensively. My thought is just simply, who's going to score for this team next year? I will preface this discussion by saying that, while this is a concern, a lot of times on paper these things look like bigger concerns than what they actually turn out to be. There is so much unknown here that we have no idea. I was saying the same things going into Bruce Weber's first season, or Bruce Weber's second season, rather, that I'd be saying right now. Who's going to score? We didn't know that Marcus Foster would show up and be a guy that right out of the box could be someone that could score 17, 18 points per game. So maybe that's what happens with Selton Miguel next year. But if you look at the current roster, nobody averaging more than 6 points per game is going to be back next year, if the assumption being Cartier-Jada is not back winds up becoming true. So that's the question that I ask you, Mason. How does this team improve offensively next year?
I think that, number one, you hope that a guy like Dejuan Gordon, with some time spent, over the offseason working on things, gets better at scoring, and I think he will. I've said it all year that I think that being a young guard, unless you're one of the best in the country, you're going to struggle being a small guy. It takes time to get big enough to compete on a weekly level with some of the other guys in the Big 12. And I think he's done things over the last, part of the season to make you think there are some flashes there. He could be a decent offensive contributor. And I think that some of it's just going to come down to hoping quite a bit that the new guys coming in are going to be able to boost your offense, because right now I don't think a ton of the guys returning are going to help you out. Maybe Mike McGurl, but Mike McGurl's kind of seen his shot numbers go down quite a bit recently, and he's always been a streaky guy. Some games he's on, some games he's not going to see the floor for more than 15 minutes. So there's just going to be a lot of hoping and praying next year for this K-State team to fix the offense. I think you just kind of hope that all of the guys that are young, the sophomores and freshmen next year, are ready to go, and if they're not, you're going to go through another season of this, and then they better be ready by that third year out, counting this year, next year, and then that third one, because if not, then there's a real problem going on with K-State basketball.
Yeah, I think a lot of it will, quite honestly, be on the freshmen. I think Nigel Pack and Selton Miguel and Luke Kasubke better be ready to score a little bit next year. You're going to be forced into that. I also would say this. As bad right now as Dejuan Gordon can look, and as up and down as like Montavious Murphy can look and Antonio Gordon can look. I mean, Antonio had 16 in one game last week and then felt pretty non-existent offensively. He hit the glass. I mean, he did hit the glass. I'll give him credit for that for sure against Texas, but not being able to pack any sort of a scoring punch just a couple of days later. I do think one of those players at least will be able to take a marginal to substantial step forward offensively and will look better. I think some of it right now is they are so young. They're in a bad environment to really grow and develop right now just because the team has been in so much upheaval this year. So I think they're not getting a fair shake, and I think you will see some improvement there. But another guy that I think is very key to all of this is David Sloan, because point guard has been really unsettled throughout this year. It's taken David Sloan time to get to the point where the coaching staff trusts him or has at least had their hand forced enough to play him more in these games. And it's clear that he has a talent that nobody else on the roster really has to be a pure point guard and distributor and be somebody that gets players shots. And I think that can really help out too. I think if David Sloan takes a major step forward, one, he can obviously contribute scoring the ball some too, even though he's a pass-first point guard. But being able to set guys up and give the team a true point guard that has some experience, hopefully buys in more on the defensive end, I think his development will be as key as anything to the offense next year, even if he's not the guy that is going to be leading the team in scoring.
I think David Sloan's going to be a big part of it. I think that when you look inside, obviously Antonio Gordon and Montavious Murphy, we know what they are. Davion Bradford is going to be a guy to see what goes on there. They seem high on Casey Isiagu. I think that just figuring out things inside.
He's not going to be scoring the ball, though.
I understand that, but at least having somebody that's competent inside that when they touch it, because I love Mac, but we've seen it time and time again, and it's getting tougher and tougher to defend. For whatever reason, every once in a while, he's just really relaxed with the ball. And we saw it again against Texas. He does the move that I call turtling, where he gets it, and instead of, keeping it protected, he just kind of hunches over and keeps it tucked under his gut. Well, that makes it easy to tie things up or get yourself in trouble. You just need to have your bigs inside be able to get the ball for a second and at least get some attention on him, and then you can kick back out and work your offense from there. Right now, K-State's offense has just been way too one-dimensional this season. It's either Cartier Jada is going to take it and try and score, or Xavier Sneed's going to pull up and either he's on from his mid-range game like at TCU, or he's going to miss a lot of shots like he did against Texas. It's just going to be one of those things. K-State doesn't really have an offensive identity right now except for struggling on offense.
And the problem with that, and with the fact that we're having to have this discussion, is that it makes next year feel fairly scary. It makes next year feel like you're still going to be in the deep end of the pool without much of a life raft that you know of. We'll see what happens with some of those new players. But I look at the 15-16 team and say, hey, I think your hope here is that the freshman class coming in next year can be the backbone of the next Barry, Dean, and Cam sort of group. But Barry, Dean, and Cam went through a year where they first came in and won 5 games. And that group did at least have Wesley Owundu with them, who turned out to be an NBA player, a future legitimate bona fide NBA player that stuck around and was really key to that whole turnaround. Does this team have a Wesley Owundu?
No.
Does this team have somebody that we perceive to be that good? I don't know that there is that guy on this team. So
they don't even have a DJ Johnson, and that's not a slight to DJ Johnson, but Wesley Owundu was better than him. They don't even have a guy that's going to resemble anybody from that team that helped kind of bridge the gap for those 3 freshmen.
Yeah, so I guess the point is, unfortunately, next year, the more and more this goes on and the more we see the freshmen not really come around and fight through some things here at the end of the year, the more and more it feels like next year could still be a 15-16 sort of a season. And that'll be better, by the way, than what this year is. I don't think they're going to be a 2-win team in a pretty mediocre league next year. I think they will be better than that. And you can say, well, John, how can they're already this bad, and then you take the top 3 scores off the team. We know that it doesn't work like that. It's not perfect linear math like that. There are so many variables from year to year. That's not how it works. I think they will be better, and I think there will be more reason for optimism next year. But it still would seem to me to be a pretty steep climb to expect it to be, say, a tournament team next year.